Okay.
Hey, yeah, we're live.
Hey, awesome. Okay, so
Um,
yeah,
so the first thing I kind of want to just talk about. So this is more like an intro of do what you do.
hmm
So it's this little thing that you and I are working on. And the whole idea of do what you do is just to chat with people who are doing what they love, and what they love happens to be really cool and inspiring things that others can learn from. um, I actually got that idea of do what you do from um, one of the guys we went over at Bebo. And the first thing I kind of want to just talk about. So this is.
sorry, that was
Did,
me. I had
did you
it
get that
open.
feedback?
Yeah, I had it open in the window. I was too keen.
Yeah, there was just like this feedback. So yeah, the I'm gonna use my headphones. But where I got inspired and sort of thought of that idea of do what you do is went over to the guys at who started Debo, went over to their office, and they do this little thing. It's basically a talk, and it's called Do What You Do. So I thought it was a really cool concept. Instead of AMA, I thought I should just like do something that focuses on people who just do what they do because they're crazy.
Yeah.
um, so
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 what's
yeah.
the kind of main difference, would we say, that do what you do to an AMA would be?
Um, AMA, I guess I like do what you do because AMA was more like super high profile people, because that's
Yeah.
what it's often used for. And do what you do would just be anyone that they're kicking ass and taking names, but you
Yeah.
know they're not necessarily high profile, or the internet doesn't know of them as yet.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be. So kind of looking for those type of people who are just doing what they do and kicking ass and taking names,
Yeah.
not
People with a
necessarily
good
high
story to.
profile. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's kind of how I thought up of it, and I'm glad that you like it. So you're running with it,
Yeah.
and I'm essentially kicking it off as the first do what you do.
Yes. I think it's very fitting. Um, so I thought it would be useful for people to um, know a little bit about what you do, because you kind of do quite a lot of things. Um, so honey is one of them, but then you also work at Neo, and you've done a bunch of other stuff. So it might be a good idea to just give people a quick rundown of what you do.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So yeah, I guess I did a number of things. Let's start off with Honey. Honey started a few years ago, and I'm a single founder. So as a single founder, I got accepted to 500 startups, and essentially, built out an MVP while I was in 500 startups. Um, so essentially, it's my startup, but I never fundraise, and that's because it's really hard. You can ask me about that if you're interested in learning more. But I didn't fundraise, and as a result, to continue working on it, you need to fund it. So I do other things like working at Neo to fund this little project.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
It's completely self-funded then.
yeah, totally. I mean, we got some money from 500 startups, but it was just like seed money, which finished really fast. So so yeah, if if you don't have any more money than that, it's pretty much self-funded at this point, or as they call it in Silicon Valley, bootstrapped.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, if you don't mind sharing, if anybody was looking to start one of these, what would you recommend that they're going to end up investing in it over time, if they're
Um,
fund it themselves, which I know a lot of people are?
yeah, if you're thinking about starting your own thing, I usually say don't, because it's really, really hard. But if that doesn't scare you, then yeah, definitely do it. Because it's you learn a lot when you're doing it. It's a very fulfilling sort of role when you're a founder and you're trying to build something. So if you're trying to start something, how do you go about doing it? It's gonna sound like a Nike ad, but I say just do it, right? For the most part, what I do recommend is know that you're solving a problem. I think most startups, when people start out building products, they're not entirely sure if they're solving a problem. They just think it's a cool idea and they build it, right? Which makes a lot of sense. But it is worth spending some time validating an idea before building it. So if I could do things differently, I would change the way I started Honey, or to change the way I start anything. And basically what I do is validate it, and that requires like a lot of customer development, and then doing that at scale and looking at the numbers and seeing that that it's worth doing. So and this is a lot of what I learned at Neo. So it's like activation, retention, referral, right? So those are like sort of the three things required. I wish I had a sketchboard because I kind of draw it out. But essentially, I would say validate the idea before just jumping into it and building it. And there's a lot of ways you can validate ideas, which is just like building something super simple and like a landing page, right? And putting it out there and seeing if you can collect emails, right? Then talking to people and learning more about what the problem is before just going and build it, right? So for example, you can say, I have an idea. I'd like to, I don't know, no ideas coming to my head right now, but let's just say you have an idea. Building is easy, actually. Today, in today's world, building is easy. Everything, all the components you need is super easy. Validating is a little bit harder, so that's why I suggest validating before actually going and build it and then starting it into an entire company. So startup is not as sexy as it seems to be. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless night. It's a lot of eating cheap food. I just came out from New York. I was talking to a friend, and he's doing his startup, and we're out and we're having a really nice dinner, and he's like, "It's only because you're here I'm having this really nice dinner, because otherwise, I won't." Because he's doing his thing. So yeah, just don't let the hype suck you in and be naive and think it's all fun and games. It's a lot of hard work. It's actually crazy. A lot of times you're like, why am I doing this? What the hell? Like, so yeah, if you start it, there's a lot of, before you even get to the fundraising part, you've got a long road to go, and validating it is part of that, and gaining traction. And once you validate it and you find product market fit and you gain traction, then you can start thinking about fundraising, which is an entire beast by itself.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, just to go back to the validating part, you said one of a really good way is to create a landing page. Is that to perhaps get people to sign up to a mailing list to see how many people would potentially be interested? Because I know that sort of a lot of people validate their ideas with their friends and family, and they all say, oh yeah, that's great, it's a great idea, but actually in practice it's a lot more difficult to gauge real genuine interest rather than just I guess more superficial interest. Is that kind of a way that you'd go to validate?
Yeah, exactly. You have to filter it out, right? That's why it comes down to the numbers. So you're usually looking for, depending 15 to 30% in terms of conversion, or let's just say, 15% you get like a 30% conversion, but what is the retention like and what is the referral like, right?
Yeah.
And these are like different levels. So if you have 1,000 people come to your site and then you have, let's just say 50% converted, right? That's great. But to your point, you're looking at that filter. So what's the next thing? Well, the next thing is how many of them have you retained, meaning how many are coming back to your site. So even though you got 50% conversion, if you need to now optimize to get a percentage of that to retain, and then you also need to see what the referral is going to be like. And what referral is people who will talk about your product and send other people to your site. So that's how you sort of like filter it down and you get to genuine interest through retention and referral. Activation is just one part of it. Activation is the vanity part of it. Oh, I got 30,000 people to come to my site. Great. How many converted? 5%. Not so great. So yeah, it really comes down to the retention and referral as the more important things. And yeah, it is like trying to get people's email. It's like you have a value proposition. You put your value proposition out there, and your value proposition is, let's say for honey, people want feedback, right? What is, how are people converting on that value proposition? And then a lot of the times you're really trying to tweak the value proposition, and then see how it affects conversion, right? See how it affects the activation or the retention or the referral, because then you're kind of getting a better understanding of what people want. Because oftentimes we make assumptions, even like you make these assumptions and you say, okay, designers want feedback, but next thing you build a product and, well, shit, they don't necessarily want feedback, or they don't want feedback from their peers or something like that, right? So you kind of end up in situations like that. Now you might have an idea, and then you'll talk to people about it, right? Which is customer development, and I think everyone does that now. And if you don't, you should. But when you do customer development, it's very important to keep in mind that you're talking to 10 people, right? It is still 10 people. It's not representative entirely of the market. What it does, it gives you an idea of the problems people are facing, and you're kind of getting to go deep into that. So the reason you need to do experiments online is because that is in a way customer development, but at scale. So you're sending a lot more people, and how we do it at NIA is we'll do the customer development. The customer development informs the online experiments. So it helps you craft the value proposition. If I talk to 10 people about a problem, then it's giving me insight on what that value proposition would be. I would then take the value propositions. You should have more than one. And that's where you would put it online and send a ton of people to it, and then see what those conversions are like. And that's getting closer to validating your assumptions. And once those are validated, it's like, oh great, now let's build an MVP, and then you build an MVP. There's a slight step in between an MVP and validating, and that's what we call sort of like an experiment engine. An experiment engine is essentially a step before the MVP that is built to learn more about what users want. So experiment engine assumes that you validated your assumption or your idea, and it's now building into an MVP, but it's not an MVP yet. You're basically building out small parts of it to optimize and improve and understand what people want, right? So there's, you're optimizing on, there's no drop-offs. There's people, make sure that people are going to pay here. You're going to start testing pricing and all these different kind of things, right? And then end of the experiment engine, what you have is your MVP. So that's kind of how I would recommend, going out building you're building out your products or testing your ideas. And everyone has ideas. Ideas are cheap. So I recommend testing as many ideas as you can, and then doubling down on the one that you see that works.
Yeah, instead of just rushing in on one.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
There's a lot to go through. Okay, we've had quite a few questions from people from Honey, so I'm just going to run through a few of these. The first one's actually from me, and basically what I really wanted to know is how you find time to do your day job and build up a successful side project, and how you manage your time and avoid burnout.
Funny you asked about burnout. I recently burnt out. Um, how do I avoid burnout? Avoiding burnout is I mean, I figured this out and then I forgot, and then I burnt out recently. But avoiding burnout is really finding that, trying, and I know it's hard. I'm I'm saying this, but it's hard. It's really trying to find that balance where you can essentially have a life and do what you do what you love, right? And what I figured is just like on weekends, you just gotta take one day to just let everything go and not do anything. And I usually do that where it's just like, I won't do anything on the computer. But I guess for how I do all these different things, it's difficult. Like I work full time at Neo, but the awesome thing about Neo, and this is what's important. Like if you were going to do something similar as what I'm doing, is that Neo, they understand what I do. They understand the type of person I am. I'm very entrepreneurial. I like to build stuff, right? So, when I went in, they know about Honey. They like Honey. They support Honey. So it's a huge help when the company you're going to work for full time supports what you do, right? Because sometime at work, you're going to have to do something, right? You're going to have to pull up and check something with, with Honey or whatever you're doing, right? And if they're not cool with it, then it's going to just frustrate you and make it harder for you to do any of these things, right? So for Neo, they're super cool about, people being entrepreneurs. So they simply just like, yeah, if you're not doing anything, then work and do your thing, just whatever. They focus more on deliverable, like they don't track time. It's not about are you working? It's, are you taking names and kicking ass? Are you getting shit done? Are you awesome? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool. Well, do your thing. We don't, it's kind of like that sort of culture. And that's pretty awesome. That makes it easy for me to jump between things, that I do. And it also like, I can bring Neo in for help, right? I can get help from my teammates over at Neo. So that makes it a little bit easier in terms of being able to juggle a full-time job and side projects. So if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna try to do full-time, then make sure your employer is cool with it. And if they're cool with it, then it'll make it a little bit easier for you to juggle things. And um, I essentially don't do a lot of the development, but I spend like a Saturday, for example, specking things out and making sure my team know what to do during the week, and then I'll manage them during the week. So it becomes reasonably manageable, because they're a pretty good team. So I like working with those guys. So it becomes manageable when you're working with good people as well. In the past, I haven't, and that's hurt me and Honey a lot and slowed us down big time. So yeah, working with good people would be the second part of it, right? If you're gonna have a team that you outsource to, or even your developer or your co-founder, whoever you're working with, good people is important to helping not burn out.
How do you find these good people to work with?
Good people is hard to find. How? That's there's I'm not sure there's a particular method in that, you're going to luck out. But I usually go by referral. The guys that I'm working with right now is referral, and it works. It's awesome. Sometimes referrals can go bad, but yeah, these guys were referred, so they're pretty good. I think that's the best way to find good people, actually. Referral from your network, essentially, not just like random referral. It's like, oh, this is my friend. I know you. You're really cool. You build awesome products. You know tech really well. Who would you work with? Oh, I would work with these guys. Okay, cool. I'll check them out. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Cool. So next question is, what is your opinion on the increasing influence of the on-demand economy, especially the exploitation of creative sector labor?
Creative sector labor. Well, I think the on-demand economy is quite interesting. I mean, we talk a lot about it, and for the on-demand economy, it's an interesting shift, I think, in human behavior, where we're more focused on not owning things but having experiences. It's about that. Excuse me. It's like this instant gratification. So a lot of the on-demand economy we look at is like Lyft and Uber. We actually did a project around them, and it's pretty awesome because you don't need to own a car. You just get a car when you want it, and you do whatever, right? So if I wanted to go on a trip to Big Sur, I don't need to own a car. I can use a get around. Totally, it's on demand, right? Yeah. So I think this fundamental shift in human behavior is quite interesting because, especially for our generation and next generation and future generation, because it moves us away from the obsession of owning things, right? Because in past generations, it's like so important to own a house and a car and all these different things, and now it's more just like, I don't really care for those things, but it seems that we care more about experiences, right? So it's not about, I own a car so I can go to Big Sur. It's more like I can go to Big Sur and have an experience. How I get there doesn't matter. I can get a car easily. So I think that's a very interesting shift in human behavior. There's some good, and there's some cons that'll come out of it. There are pros and cons to everything, but I'm more interested in the pros, where our generation is going to be more focused on experiences, less on ownership, right? And that makes me wonder if this is something that can possibly counter the greed that we encounter in society, which is all about like hoarding and personal wealth and all me, right? Where it's more like, now it's just like about experiences. I want to go places, meet people, do cool things, right? So I think that influence is a very positive influence by the on-demand economy. I'm not. It's very interesting there, and like, I think it's really cool. I've been using the on-demand economy from the beginning, from when Lyft came out, among the first users. I was always there, like checking the new things out, and the same for Airbnb and all these different kind of things. What's interesting about the on-demand economy is I was thinking of writing an article about this, is that they use a community as product in a very, very heavy way. So I'll give my recent experience with Lyft because I'm a little disappointed, and it also makes me think about how they use community as product. But so, sorry, not Lyft, Airbnb. So Airbnb started out and it's all community based. It's like, oh, host your friend, host your family kind of thing, right? So when you go at someone's place, it's not about you. It's not a hostel. It's not a hotel, right? It's more friendly. It's more community. And I thought and that's cool, right? That's the amazing thing about the on-demand economy, right? And there's two approaches to it, right? I like the approach that Lyft takes and Airbnb takes, right? But it's kind of fascinating that communities use to build on-demand type products. But the question is, what happens when they when they're worth, you know, a billion, 10 billion. What happens when they get that big? It's really hard to maintain that sort of culture, right? And then they become more of this like corporate soulless entity that we're all familiar with, right? But it's kind of funny. We started using them because they weren't the soulless entity. There were communities. Um, and a lot of it is that that's what the on-demand economy is just like creating these communities, right? And that's what I think is interesting about its influence. It's more community-based. Like Lyft is on demand, but Lyft is about, you know, it's almost like my friend picking me up and taking me somewhere, right? So it's, again, it's part of that, it's that shift where everything is more community oriented. And I think having that influence is also positive, right? But since the on-demand economy is new, we don't know what happens when they reach at, say, you know, the IPO level. We don't know what happens when they exit, you know. That's that's sort of like the problem with the on-demand economy. So we don't know that con is yet. But you know, recent experience with Airbnb hints at like how they change and how they become more corporate, because they have to. They have shareholders and they have investors, and they have to, you know, they have to like optimize to make profits, not necessarily optimize for community anymore. So community is not necessarily their core product. Once they've hit product market fit and hit traction, and their curve is like growing, 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 they're worth 10 billion. It's like, okay, cool. Community is not so important. But it's interesting how communities use to build their product. I mean, and that's kind of why I wanted to do an article around this, or sort of do a study around this, because, you know, Lyft is definitely using community as product, like definitely. Airbnb also used community as product. Uber didn't. So Uber is a ruthless organization, as you know, some people would say, but at least they're consistent. they never they never started as a community and, you know, do any of those things and then change. They're consistent. At least give them credit for that. So yeah. That being said, I think it's very positive influence. The creative sector is is a little bit of a different thing. But here's what I think about the creative sector. Things are changing, right? The way we design, or the way we do creative things, is going to change. So let's just say, I'm not sure if if we're referring to, by let's say, the creative sector as an example, 99 Designs, but that's often like this, a lot of things that we talk about. But the way I see it is that, listen, there are people on 99 Designs making a living in other countries by doing this type of work. And that's a good thing, because that helps alleviate poverty in the world, right? The second thing is that there are people right here who want design, but they can't afford you or me, right? Because we're expensive. So if they can have access to that somewhere else to start their little micro small business and do something meaningful, then why not, right? Because the truth is that 99 designers don't replace you or me. And that's proven, right? It's been around for a while. I still have a job. Designers are still in demand. I'm in a bunch of Slack groups, and people are always like, I'm looking for designers. I'm looking for designers. I'm hiring, right?
Yeah.
99 Designs did not change anything. It did not take our jobs. The on-demand economy, in terms of the creative sector, did not necessarily change anything, not from my point of view. So I think by now it's proven that, you know, it doesn't affect us. It doesn't take away anything from us, except maybe your pride a little bit, or ego. But it doesn't do anything except it helps. It helps people who are trying to start something, but they can't afford me, or you know, I have friends who've used 99 Designs, and have gotten, you know, okay work from it, but they've gotten something where they can move forward in their, you know, in their journey to like create a business. And then when they're making money and they're doing well, I'm 100% sure they'll hire a badass designer and do something at the right level, right? So the way I look at it in terms of the on-demand economy in the creative sector, it's all about the right thing at the right time, right? It's the right fidelity of work. I'm starting a new company, you know, it's brand new. I don't have any clients. I don't know what it is. I'm just, you know, starting something, right? So you don't need top of the line design for that, right? It's not the right fidelity necessarily. And that, that comes back to a lot of the stuff we do, right? Like when you're validating something, you don't need polished, awesome, great design. You don't necessarily need that, because what you're validating or what you're focusing on is the problem, not how the problem is presented, not if it's on a beautiful website or app or whatever. It's not that. You're focusing on the problem. So the right fidelity at the right time. I don't think the on-demand economy has a negative influence on the creative sector. I think it has a positive influence. And I think in the beginning we were all like, oh shit, it's going to take away our jobs, blah blah blah, or it's affecting our industry, or it doesn't value design, and all these arguments, right? Well, I think the argument that I have that really kind of trumps all of that no one can argue with, is that if as a small business I'm getting help to start my business at an affordable price to me, then that's good. How can you argue with that? If someone is in China or India and they're doing work and getting paid and being able to help their family, how can you argue with that? You can't. You can't argue with these things, right?
And it can also help start up your own career, because I actually started on Elance, and because I was sort of straight out of university, and I had no commercial work. Not many people would have given me that work without and a big budget to go with it. So I had to work on these really low budget projects, but I ended up getting really good reviews and really good referrals, and it actually snowballed from there. So I actually think these kind of communities have helped me a lot more than they have not helped me.
Yeah, helped a lot of people, more than they've harmed any designers out there, affected our industry in any negative way. And yeah, that's one of the positives, is that you get to build your portfolio and you get to build your client base, and eventually you build you're building your skills, right? And you're becoming a better designer. So yeah, if you're crafting and honing your skills, then yeah, that's great. There's a lot more pros to it than cons. But I think the most important thing is that in today right now, I think it is proven, because Elance, 99 Designs, all these guys, they've been around for a while. They did not affect our industry in a negative way, not even remotely close. And you could argue that they've helped, but you can't argue that they've negatively affected our industry. So yeah, I think all in all, the on-demand economy is awesome. I am very, very interested in looking at how companies are using community as product, because I'm not entirely on board with like, oh, using community as product, then when you're worth 10 billion, it's like, fuck you very much, right? Like, that's not cool. So it's very interesting to see how that dynamic is going to play out.
Okay, awesome. I like how you can put a positive spin on everything.
I'll be the first to say that, like when the whole like on-demand crowdsourcing, all this sort of stuff in the creative sector came out, I was definitely one of those people who were like, this is not cool, it's hurting your industry, blah blah blah, right? But I think over time, it's your perspective changes, and then you understand that no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. People are getting to start more and more things, and hey, if there's people starting things and learning things out there, that's essentially what we want, right? We want more people to be doing and learning. That's what we want in our society. So it's definitely positive in my mind.
Awesome, cool. So yeah, next question. This is from Cesar, and he wants to know what a typical day is like for you.
Typical day for me, it's fairly straightforward. I get up and I lie in bed for about an hour in the morning. I just lie there and I think. It's what I usually do. When I'm alone, I just like lie there and think for a while. Then I get up, get ready, and walk over to work. I like my route to work. I just like put on my music and I walk over, and I kind of get into like cartoon mode. So I'll think about like Avengers and people attacking the planet and being a superhero and stuff like that. So I like to just like create movie scenes in my head. Um, it's a lot of fun. Plus I have my background music and I'm just cruising. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty so I get into work, and I am essentially not a morning person. So I'll get in 9:30, 10, and then I'll put on my headphones, and then I'll jump into emails and doing all those things, and just like jumping into whatever work I have to do. But usually how we work at Neo is that we're on a project. We have these morning stand-ups. So for anyone out there, if you don't do this, highly recommend. We get in the morning and we do stand up. And what our stand up is going to be is we talk about what we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, and if we have any blockers. And that, it keeps the team in sync. We all know what each other is doing. We know what we're going to work on. And if there's any blockers, then we can talk about how to unblock, that block, right? That person that has the block. So it's super quick. It's 10 minutes tops. You go around circled. It depends on the team, obviously. Our teams are very small, so it'll be like 5-10 minutes, really snappy. Stand-ups, we don't get into deep discussions. The minute we start getting into a conversation, it's like, whoa, hey, can we talk about that later or after the stand-up? So it's just really quick. We'll do that, and then once we finish with that, then you jump into your respective thing that you're doing. So yeah, it's like essentially very simple morning, nothing over the top. I am definitely working on getting some rituals in, which is really hard. Things like meditating, for example, which is what I try that by just lying in bed and then try to meditate, but meditation is hard. Still trying to get into it.
Yeah. I'm still struggling with that one.
It's really hard, but I hear it's good. I hear a lot of good things about it. So yeah, I definitely want to get more into that. But yeah, like no, that's pretty straightforward morning or day for me. At the end of my day, well, actually, I could talk about the end of my day. For the most part, I'll wrap up my day at, let's say, 5:30. That's when I finish like all things Neo. But then that's when I will jump into my personal stuff. So to your question earlier about how I do all these things, it's kind of like me working from 7 to 9 or 10 at nights, maybe later. It really depends. So for example, I will wrap up at Neo, and then I'll stay in the office and I'll continue working because I'm still in that work mode. Sometimes in the morning, not every time. That's why my day changes. But sometimes in the morning, if I wake up early around 7, I'll jump online and I'll start like doing some honey stuff and talking to developers, and then I'll start my day into work. So between like the start and the end of the day, that's kind of where I put in work for the things that I'm doing. And when you think about it, I have a lot of time, to be honest. It's like I have from, let's say, 5:30 or 6 to 10. I have 4 hours every day that I can put towards something because I have the energy to work till 10 or 11 at night. So you find that with that amount of time, it's actually a good chunk of time to work on stuff. But if you're taking on client work, like I do sometimes, then it becomes a little bit difficult because that's a little bit more high pressure. Whereas honey and the other things that I do is not as high pressure. So yeah, it's pretty much my typical day.
Wow, that's pretty intense. Cool. So next question is how to revise working hourly rates.
I don't do hourly rates. I don't believe in hourly rates. It doesn't make sense to me. I charge based on value. So depending on the value I think I can provide, I charge on that. So I'll charge a fixed amount and then I'll deliver. Simple. I keep it simple because I think tracking hours is extremely distracting. I do not like the idea of me having to enter my hours or track it or anything remotely close to that. I'll just, but that being said, I do say hours to clients because it makes sense to them, right? So I'll say, oh, it's going to be like 40 hours of work and this is my charge for it. And then you're welcome to break that down by hourly, but I'm not going to track hours. If I go over, it's okay. If I'm way under, it's also okay. So the point is just like I'll charge an amount that, depending on the value and the amount of time I think I'll spend on it, and that's it. So I don't really do hourly, but I have an hourly. It's kind of weird, right? It's like, and I'm not sure if I get the question how to revise working hourly rates, but that's how I would revise it. If I like, that's how I do it. I don't think about it in terms of hourly. I think about it in terms of value I can deliver, and I charge based on that. But to give it context, humans, we think in numbers. It's amazing. Everywhere you look, if you think about it, there's numbers, right? We think about almost everything in numbers. We're pretty good at that because we're good at pattern recognition. So the idea is it will break down into hours, but ultimately I am not thinking about it in hours. I'm thinking about it as in, oh, I'm gonna charge you. You want a website? Okay, cool. I'll charge you 3,500 for the website. It doesn't matter if I take, 60 hours or 20 hours. I don't care about that. I'll get you with something that you love at the end of it, and that's it, period. That's what I try to go for.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's useful as well to, if you struggle to figure out what the value is and what you want from that, is you can charge like weekly or something like that. So you can say, it'll take me about 4 weeks to complete this project. And this is my weekly rate, and you can sort of do it that way if you're not quite comfortable on charging by value. But yeah, I think value-based pricing is definitely the way forward.
Yeah. I think so too. And there's a lot of even agencies, moving towards that direction of value-based pricing. And it makes a lot of sense because how weird it is to sit there and, you're sitting there and you're just going, oh, I gotta check my time in, is my clock on, right? It's just this weird way of operating. When I'm designing, I want to get into it. I don't want to be thinking about checking the clock or the time and all that sort of stuff. And I probably lose more because I forget to turn it on. And then I'm like, shit, how much time did I spend? Like I just I like to optimize for efficiency, and I feel like that's inefficient because I have to spend time thinking about the number of hours I spent working doing A, B, or C, and that's way too much of my time being used already. So I love to remove those little things from the equation. So the more I can optimize myself for thinking about the bigger picture, then the better. So yeah, I just don't want to deal with these tedious little things.
Yeah, I guess actually I've just been thinking about maybe what he wants to know is if you have existing clients, how would you revise, maybe sort of, so charging more, how would you sort of put that to them? And maybe going from an hourly rate to a value-based rate, would you just sort of come out with it straight? And
Yeah, totally. Well, I would talk to my client and I would, let them know and say, hey, I think this is a better way of doing it. Here's why. And I would explain to them. I would ask them to switch to that sort of method as opposed to like an hourly method. And a lot of the times I explain to clients that's how I work. I would, even though I tell them, oh, my hourly is this, right? And this is what I think this project will cost, right? Essentially, what I tell them is that here's the thing: I'm not tracking hours, though. I don't care about it. So if I spend less time on this, it doesn't mean that you can come and say, oh, but you only spend 10 hours when you said you'd spend 50 hours. So I'm going to pay you for 10 hours. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that. You can pay me for that 50 hours. If I spend 60, 65 hours on it, it doesn't mean I will say, hey, you got to charge me. You have to pay me for the 65 hours, even though I charge for 50 hours. And that's where it's not based on hourly, it's based on value. And the value is what I deliver to you. Are you happy with it? Yes, no. If you're not happy with it, then let's talk about it. You know, and it's, as long as it's reasonable, then I will continue to try and deliver what you want, as long as it's within reason. If and then you have to figure that out, right? If the client's being unreasonable, then that's a different story. But yeah, it's just like value base is just way better. And I would just talk to clients about it, and they're generally cool about it. They like it. Like, any client you put that to words, I guarantee you they won't say no. It makes sense for them. They like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, the next question is a bit of a funny one. It says it's a serious question, but it says, Damian, you are the coolest person I've ever met in person. What is the secret of true source of your coolness, and how does someone who isn't cool like me develop that, or is it hopeless? I'm not sure you can answer that one. Maybe it's the caps.
First, thank you. That's awesome. No, it's not hopeless, Jess. So yeah, that's a funny question. I think one of the things that I've been focusing on and trying to do is optimizing my life to do what I love, right? Not focus on what other people are doing, but essentially do what I love and create value. I've thought about this a lot, and I actually have yet another article to write about, but I try to optimize myself to be obsessed with value and creating value, right? So it's always like, how can I help? What can I do? What can I build that can help, right? So that's kind of like my focus. I just try to, and that's why I like this whole thing that we're doing with Do What You Do, because I do think there's a lot of people out there who are doing interesting things that create value, that, they're not high profile, and they're not under the magnifying glass and that sort of stuff, right? So I think, like, just do what you love doing, but also, like, focus on creating value. Like, I'm obsessed about creating value. I have a spreadsheet inspired by a good friend of mine, David, and I have a spreadsheet that documents literally, the positive or the value that I create. I'm not talking about, like, the building things and the professional stuff. Like, all the introductions I've made, people who've asked for introductions, people, if I've made those introductions, what has come out of those introductions. I try to track, like, if I tweet to Medium or anyone and I say, hey, you guys should do this or change that, I kind of try to track those things because at the end, I'm just trying to gauge the value that I create for people out there, and however way I can help, whatever small way I can help. So I think when you create that sort of value, then people see you as being, as you would say, just, cool person or a nice person or just someone awesome. And if people think that about me, which is great, then I would give credit to that. I would give credit to the fact that I focus a lot on trying to create value in whatever way I can.
Awesome. Cool. The secret of being cool. Okay, so the next one's a bit of a difficult one. What do you do if you're struggling to come up with a stellar idea for a logo design? I
scour the internet. I go everywhere. I look around where I can for inspiration. I would go outside. I will, always have a pencil and paper at hand that I can always be sketching. Yeah, like, I'm not a logo designer. I'm pretty bad at it. I studied it in school, but I realized I was bad at it. It's a very interesting profession in the sense that you're required to simplify things into a graphic and into an icon, and it's really awesome. When I went to Paris and I was looking at going through the Louvre, and I was looking at all these pottery, and they had, like, these icons in them and these drawings, right? And I was like, holy shit, those guys were the original iconographers. Those are the original logo designers. So I think that, getting outside and trying to find inspiration from wherever you can is very, very helpful. But I think the first thing that you should do is, just looking at how the question is phrased, come up, well, what do you do if you're struggling to come up with a stellar idea for a logo design? So the problem there is that you're already kind of like putting pressure on yourself by trying to hit that stellar idea immediately, right? So you have to let go of that. Just let go of it. Screw that. It doesn't matter. And then once you let go of that and you just like start allowing yourself to explore even the bad ideas, then design is a process. It's never this thing where you're going to hit stellar. You're never going to hit brilliance immediately. It's going to take iteration and iteration and iteration, try and try, failure and failure and failure until you really hit that stellar idea, right? So take some pressure off yourself and remove this whole notion of stellar as if you're supposed to hit it immediately, and if you don't, then you're a bad designer. No, that's not how it works. You're going through that creative process required. So ease up on yourself. Don't be too hard. And then go through the process. And when you go through the process, it will get you to stellar, and you'll sort of know it when you get there, right? At least, I think so. When I start a design of, landing page or product, whatever, you're staring at a blank canvas, and it's hard. It's easy to think, man, how do I come up with a brilliant design from this blank canvas that I'm looking at? So my process is just to do things, right? And then, I start piecing things together and trying to get there. And, in the beginning, it's like, this is horrible. Where am I going with this? But then you push through, you continue, you push through, and you push through. And, at the end of the week, you're like, this is not bad. Not bad, right? You kind of get there. So just trust the process. Go through the process. Don't put a lot of stress and anxiety and pressure on yourself to hit stellar immediately, because you're not. And even if you do it and the first time, if you do it and the first time you hit stellar, you think you hit stellar, then it's not stellar. Actually, you can do better. You can keep pushing, right? And that's the beautiful part about design. That's what I miss about design, because I don't get to practice that a lot. Is the part where you can just you can keep pushing, you can get into it and iterate and do all these different things. So yeah, like I would say that's based on your question and how you phrase it. Remove stellar, remove this whole idea and notion that you need to hit stellar immediately, and allow yourself to go through the process. And I think you'll find it.
Yeah. And if you get really stuck, take a break and sleep on it.
Yes, definitely.
Just hit it on the head first thing in the next morning.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a lot of times when I just and even so, even if you come up with a design, I'll come up with a design, and then how I know that I've come up with something that I like is not when I initially like it. It's when I take a break, a few days, 3 days, 4 days, a week, and I come back and I look at it. If I look at it and I'd be like, I like this. This is cool. Like if this is my response, and then that's great. I definitely like it. But if I come back and there are cases where I come back and I'm like, no, this doesn't make any sense, right? And what I'll do is just I'll scrap it. I'll scrap it, because if you come back and you don't like it and you try to tinker with it and improve it, maybe that will work. But I find it easier to just scrap it and just try again, right? Just kind of start up again. Luckily, I don't have to do that a lot, because I'm not in a position to, and I also hate doing the same thing over again. So luckily, I don't do it. But I think that's the best way to go. That's the process. Just and it's really up to you, right? Everyone's process is very, very different, which is why I never get the whole idea wrong. You should use this or you should do that, right? These are all shared ideas and suggestions in what you should do, but everyone's process is different, and just trust your own process.
Cool, awesome. before we go on to the next one, I just want to check, how are you for time? I know you said you start work at about 9:30 every day. We're sort of getting more and more questions as we go through, so just want to check you're all okay.
I'm good. I think some of the guys at the office are online watching, so I think hopefully they know why I'm late, and they're cool with it.
Okay, straight through then. So the next one is back to the value-based pricing. So we said, agree we can think about value-based rates, but products have a lot of iterations. How can we handle that?
Sorry, say that again. Where are we?
It's about value-based rates. It's been upvoted, so it's kind of gone to the top. So it's dealing with iterations, and if you price by value and then a client comes back with a lot of changes, how do you anticipate that and deal with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And here's the thing about value-based pricing before you do it, which I'm glad that question came back. You have to know your process really well, and know how you work before you can do it, right? So for me, like, the reason it works for me because a lot of the times I wouldn't necessarily have to do iterations. It's like if I came up with a design and the client doesn't like it, then I'll scrap it and I'll start again based on the feedback, right? But I also don't do iterations. I don't do variations. I don't do, oh, I'm gonna give you 3 concepts, and here they are, pick one. I don't do that. I went through an entire process, right? And it takes a lot of time and energy. So I think that what I'm giving you is to the best of my ability. What I can appreciate is the fact that it's your business, it's your brand, and a lot of it's your idea. So I can appreciate the feedback that you give me, and I will take that feedback into consideration. I will even extrapolate out of that feedback what the client don't know what they're saying, right? Because I think that's a huge part of design, trying to extrapolate what people are saying and use it as feedback. Because they might be saying one thing, but they actually mean something completely different. So you have to like be able to listen for that. So because I do it in such a way where I don't do, like a bunch of different versions and variations, I basically go on feedback. Because my process is like that, I can anticipate how long it'll take. And if it takes any longer than that, then I know that I'm actually working with an unreasonable client. And at this point, I feel like there isn't a good fit, so I will call it a day and cut my losses. So it comes down to knowing your process and picking really good clients who understand your process and like your work, more importantly, right? If you have a client that doesn't trust your work entirely, and they're just like nitpicking and everything and having you do all these unreasonable things to the design, and especially if it's things that you don't agree with, right? Like a lot of the times when I get feedback from clients, I freaking love it. I'm like, I think half the times that my clients make my work better. I can't do. I love the work the work that I love the most are the ones where the client are very proactive and giving me feedback, and like it's a collaborative process, right? And that's the other thing about a value-based pricing model. It's that it's collaborative. It's not where you as the designer go into the back room, do your thing, come back, here's 3 concepts, pick one, I will iterate. I think that's a very outdated model. I think the model is where you try to involve the client. And you'll find that when you involve the client through the process and it's collaborative, they're better clients. They're easier clients because they understand why you've made certain decisions, right? They were part of that and they've helped with it. So there's less of this whole iteration concept of okay, go back, do this, That's a problem. Like you're coming with the design and showing them, and then they're like, no, change this, change that, do this, right? But the problem there is that they don't understand why you made these decisions, so that's why they're going to do that. And then you guys are going to go back and forth, and you're wasting time, right? So if you're collaborative about the process, then it's just it's easier, and you wouldn't end up into this whole iterative sort of system. So the way you handle that is being collaborative, involving the client in the process. That's what I do, collecting their feedback every step of the way. Make your process transparent, and just don't hide it and just come back with stuff and expect the client to say, oh yeah, this is cool, right? Great. So I think that's how I avoid it.
Yeah. So what tools do you use to collaborate with clients then? Do you work face to face with them? I guess that's the easiest way, or
Yeah, I work. A lot of clients are here, so I work face to face with them. But if I can't, I use Honey. So I'll send clients work on Honey now. Large part of the reasons of wanting to build certain features into Honey is because well, clients are remote and I want to show them work and get feedback. But I also don't want to pay like $49 or $50 a month for that, especially when it's not consistent. So something like Honey for me is like a great tool to use in those situations. So I'll use that to get feedback. But a lot of the clients, I find like meeting with the clients. I meet with them for like an hour a week or 2 hours a week, depending on what works. And we'll just like sit down and we'll talk and we'll go through things. I have a client, Cove. Those guys have been awesome to work with, and that's how we do it. We'll meet like for an hour every week, and we'll just like have coffee, and then we'll sketch stuff and go through wireframes, and I'll give feedback and all these different kind of things. So it's a very, very collaborative process because I am not doing what they're doing full time. I'm helping them on product branding, UI, UX. So having that collaborative sort of experience is important because I need as much context as possible. I can't no one can design without context, right? So it's trying to and that's why I believe in the collaborative model with clients, is because it is their product, it is their business, it is their service, it's their idea, right? You're not going to know it better than them. So that being said, I mean, depending on the amount of research, you can argue that, of course, right? But I feel like involving them in that process is really important to helping with avoiding all the iterations and all of these problems that will come up from that sort of model.
Cool. Okay, so the next question we've got is, what's down the road for Honey?
It's down the road for Honey. Okay, so been really hard at work the last couple of months with Honey, like the last 6 months really, just going really, really hard. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen us release a bunch of new stuff. There's stuff that probably aren't pushed as yet. So what I've been focused on with Honey is just making it a solid product and improving the experience and taking a lot of the feedback that I get from the community, for improving it. So I've been working a lot on that. I feel like once I hit that point where I feel like it's really solid, then here's the thing. I can't bootstrap this forever. So my thing is that what's down the road for Honey is that I need to figure out a goddamn way to monetize it so it can continue to exist. Otherwise, there will come a point where I have to stop this, right? So there's that. There's me monetizing it, or and I know that that's like a dirty word when you're building community, but it is a necessary word. So that being said, I've thought about like how to do that, and that's a lot of. My strong point is not business, so I can definitely put that out there. But I've definitely been thinking a lot about it. That being said, there are other things that can happen with Honey that I've thought about, and I'll throw it out there. I actually, thought about this. It's really hard. I've kind of lightly discussed it, but I would refuse to let it die. And if I can't figure out to come up with an economic way of keeping it around, then I would open source it. And I've been thinking about that. So those are sort of like the two things, because I am not necessarily interested in making like a ton of money off of Honey or anything. I do it because I genuinely believe that our community, our industry lacks somewhere where you can go and get constructive or insightful feedback. and people take it for granted, but it's something that really can help you as a designer and help you level up. So that's why I built it, and I don't think anyone out there has solved this as yet, though there are a few people taking shots at it, which is great. So yeah, I think like the two things for Honey is just figuring out how I can make it sustainable going down the road, right? And when I say sustainable doesn't necessarily mean just money, right? Like open source is a way of making it sustainable because it could continue with the development of the product, but in a way that it doesn't take a lot of my time, and I can focus on me living and making money for me in other ways, right? So I think to answer the question, I think that's where I'm at, and that's what's down the road for Honey. As for right now, there's a couple of features that I have to release, and I gotta organize more like some hangouts to talk to the community and get some feedback more like during like true hangouts or something like that. That's something I'm gonna try to make time for. But yeah, definitely making it a badass experience where it could be a product where you go and you get feedback from your peers, or you can use it in a private space to work with clients or teams or groups.
And of course, do what you do.
Yes, and building the community, of course. We've got like Do What You Do. We've got Honeycomb, which is like a Slack group for members of Honey to hang out. So definitely like building up that community, and a large part of that is like you spearheading that, Laura. So because yeah, community is hard to build, and it's hard to do everything. So Laura's definitely been helping me on that. So anything community related, definitely reach out to her.
Yeah, cool. So what is the product you've been the most excited about recently?
Ooh, great question. The product I have been most excited about, man, it's like on the spot question. I don't think anything's come to mind. I've been totally excited about Crowdcast, given that Sai's asking this. And Crowdcast is awesome. So I really love where Sai's taking Crowdcast, and it's been awesome watching him build it. I'm usually excited about the products I've seen started and see how it's developing. I'm excited about Cove, but one of the coolest product I saw that I was super excited about, and I'm excited to see where they go, is this app called Timeline. So a lot of the stuff that I'm excited about probably are on mobile. So Timeline is this app where you can read on a topic, but you read a group of these topics in a timeline sort of fashion. So let's just say you wanted to learn about Coney, for example, right? Well, you're not just going to read one article on Coney. You're going to read several articles that at the end of reading these articles, you have a really great idea of what Coney is all about, right? Because sometimes you'll see a topic trending and then you'll click it and then you just read that one article, but you don't have the full context or everything around that topic, right? So Timeline is an app that sort of like aims to help with that, and I think it's really awesome, primarily because I had the idea a very long time ago. So I think it's really cool, and I had that idea because you'd be in a conversation and people would be like, "Oh, have you heard of this or that?" Right? Or like, "Did you hear of Blue Bottle getting acquired? Was it? No, sorry, Tartine getting acquired by Blue Bottle. What an SF thing to happen." So you'll hear like a topic like that, and you're like, "Oh shit, I didn't know anything about that." Whereas you can just like pull up and do a quick search on that topic and get contextual articles around it would be awesome. So pretty excited about that. There's this other one called I lost my phone, so I can't check it. It's called Nico, or I think Nico. Yeah, I think so. And it's this app where it's almost like talking to someone. So you just say, "Hey, what's the coolest restaurant in Mission for beers?" And they'll respond and they'll give you that. Or you can ask, "Hey, where's a great spot to take my girlfriend tonight?" Right? And they'll respond and tell you that, right? So I'm very excited about the products or the apps in that in that space, and it's very interesting because it's moving away from it's moving more towards invisible design. And there's a lot of talk around that as well, where there's just no design. You're just interacting with SMS or text. It's all textual. I think that's a very, very, very interesting and exciting space for product and for design, because it just hints at how design is about to change again. So that's really cool.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, just whizzing through these now. Based on your idea of charging by value, what are the higher or lesser value products in your opinion? And that's from Dave.
Wow, higher or lesser value projects?
I guess maybe is a web design project higher or lesser value than a brand project?
Oh, I see. No, so the thing is like when I say value, I'll value kind of like extends beyond design, to be honest. It doesn't start or end with design. So let's just say like just one client I'm working on, and essentially what they want is a landing page, right? But what I deliver in terms of value is that I will start doing their copy, and I'll do it to the best of my ability. So that's usually a great start. So I'll do stuff like copy and branding. I'll also talk about their social media presence and how to align themselves online and do all these things. So when I talk about value, it's not just design. Design is like a small part of it. It's all the other things that I can do. And this is also the reason why my price is this amount, because value doesn't encompass just design. It encompasses a lot more than design. So there's not necessarily higher or lesser value. I think when in all honesty, for me, how I make a project exciting is not true design. It's like all the other things that I can do that connects to design. So that's what I mean by value, like delivering value in a project is like, what are the other things? Obviously, the design is the tangible. Design is the thing that the client can see and feel, right? What I try to deliver on is a little bit more than that, in a sense that it's not necessarily the things they can it's not necessarily the things that they or I can measure or put a price on. But at the same time, it's really good helping them with these things, because it increases the chances of their work being successful. And if their work is successful, then by definition means that my work is going to be successful. And that's the ultimate goal, because what I'm tired of doing is working on stuff where it dies, right? I remember working with the guys at Hack Summit that did this awesome online dev conference. And initially, they hired me for like landing page. That was the project, right? But like I helped with branding and how do we do the name and like all the little details that it comes down to. Like that's what I enjoyed helping them with. And I think in the end, they saw more value, not necessarily in the design, but all those little things that I helped with, right? And that's what I mean by sort of like delivering value in a project. Design is just one part of it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say like I have higher or lesser value projects. I think for me, they're all the same. Whether it's mobile, it's web, it's branding. If I do a branding project, then it'll turn into something else anyways, because I find other things that I can help with and say, hey, why aren't you guys doing this? Why aren't you guys doing that? So that's what I mean.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so and this is from Dave again. So do you see purely design work lesser value than development or design development projects? I think that's kind of a follow-on from the last one. So you've kind of pretty much answered that.
Okay, cool.
So should I just sort of say?
Yep, I hopefully I nailed that. If I didn't, Dave can ask that again. But you see purely design work lesser value than. Oh, well, maybe I didn't answer that. Do you see purely design work lesser value than development or design dev project? Um, no, I don't. Lesser in terms of monetary value, yeah. Because if you're doing a project and it's both design and development, then yeah, you're delivering a lot more value there, right? There's a lot of different values that you're delivering there. So I think like if it's design, and that's one thing. If it's just development, that's another thing. Um, uh, the pricing should probably be different for the two of them, and that comes down to your experience and the skill and all that stuff. And then if if you're doing both, then yeah, you're delivering even more value. So charge accordingly. Definitely charge accordingly. But I wouldn't phrase it as lesser or higher value. I wouldn't phrase it necessarily like that. They both have value. They both have a role that they play that is important. So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So the last question we've got from Neil, which is, I've been working with a startup for nearly 8 years now. We have trouble launching and delivering a product. How long should someone hang on to the dream?
So how long should someone? I ask myself that every day because I've been working on honey for a while, right? So I ask myself that question all day. I don't know if I necessarily have the answer. I'm still trying to figure that out. But in the end, it's just that what it comes down to is like, do I enjoy doing this? Yeah, it's really awesome. It's cool. So I'll keep doing it. So that's why I keep hanging on. But I think the question that Neil asks is a little bit more like there's a fundamental problem of launching and delivering. So if you have trouble launching and delivering a product, then and you can't do it internally as a team, then that's not good. 8 years and not being able to launch or deliver is not good. So there's a couple of things that I would do is I would be, well, I'm out because life is short and I can't spend, a bunch of the time doing this one thing. So I would bail, or I would find help. I would find a team that can help me launch and deliver a product. Hire a product manager, hire someone who can get it out the door. Because fundamentally what it sounds like that is missing there is a product manager, someone who will kick people in their asses to get shit out the door. And product managers do that in the nicest possible way. But that's what they're supposed to do, right? They're supposed to keep shit on the timeline and deliver. That's their job. So if you're not delivering a product, then you have a product management problem, which means that whoever is in charge of that should take a hard look and, think about that. And yeah, either find someone to come in and help you guys do it. 8 years. I actually want to dig into this question was I've been working with it. You've been at a startup for 8 years and they have trouble launching and delivering a product. Yeah, that is not good, Neil. So I would say 8 weeks shouldn't pass and you haven't launched something, right? So I would say that you talk to your team and figure out if they can bring in help. Are they capable of bringing in help to be able to deliver and launch? And if they can't do that, and if it's your dream, then sure, hang on to it. I don't know a lot of the context of this question, right? Not a lot of background on it. But if it's your dream, Neil, then bring someone in to help you who can deliver. If you're just part of a startup and it's not your dream, then I would say 8 years is a pretty significant amount of time to invest into something that is not your dream. And you should probably rethink that and do something about it. So if they can't bring in people and launch product and deliver, then I would personally, and I'm probably being harsh or whatever, but I would bail. And I think I can say this being doing a lot of stuff and working with a lot of startups and building stuff and failing over and over and getting older, and you realize that, hey, life is short, right? So you have to do things that you love and things that you're delivering value and things that you care about. And if you're not hitting on all these different things that's important to you, then rethink where you are and yeah, try somewhere else. And God knows there's like a billion startup out there, right? So they're looking for designers and developers. So yeah, just but before I'm not saying abandon your dream if it is your dream, but what I would strongly advise is to get help. Hire a product manager, get someone who can help you guys ship. That's what I would advise.
Yeah, get it launched.
Cool. I think there's something about a poll. Did you see like, you guys should ask the audience a poll on what kind of designers are in the audience. Yeah. What kind of designers are in the audience here? We should get a poll on that going.
Yeah.
But these were some pretty these are some really great questions that people asked, and it seems that we're
I think we're about out.
11 questions. That's a lot more than I expected. So this is really cool. If there's I'm gonna make one more tweet, see if anyone's out there have any other questions. One last tweet. Tweeting.
Brand designers. Trying to think of lots of different designers I can ask now. So web designers, brand designers,
Mobile designers.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, so we should talk about a little bit about who is the next person we have for Do What You Do. And also what I would be interested in is if people have any ideas on who we should have on here for Do What You Do. So you guys can ask some really hard, tough, interesting questions to those people. So so yeah, that being said, is the next is Marissa, is that?
Yep, Marissa from mybearbear.com.
Yeah.
Little thing I can put the link in, but
so yeah, Marissa's super awesome. Great background, doing a lot in the community. It's gonna be great to have her up, and yeah, I'll definitely be here to throw some really tough questions at her.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely coming up in the next one. Do we know what's the date for that? So we just throw it out there.
Yep, the date for that is Tuesday, the 5th of May.
Tuesday the 5th.
I only know my time, so it's at 7 p.m. In England. I'm not quite sure what that is over there. I think it's about I don't know.
I'll find it.
11 a.m. your time.
Yep, England, UK.
I think it's about 11 a.m.
Okay, cool. 11 a.m. is perfectly. That's good. It's this morning I woke up. I'm like, oh shit! It's at 8:30.
Yeah, I just rolled out of bed.
Literally. Cool. So I think we have a pretty good start.
Definitely, good start. So yeah,
good crowd.
They've got some amazing little. She makes some amazing little bears on there. So
yeah. So thanks everyone who came out to ask questions. There's some really great questions. And obviously, if you have more questions or there's stuff that you want to like want me to expand on, you can always hit me up on Twitter. So yeah, I'm totally available there, so we can have the questions. I saw there's this one. It's gonna be interesting. There's this one tweet that says, damn, where is it? I wonder if anyone would respond to this, but Damian suggesting that 99-cent design has a positive effect on the creative economy, helping those in developing economies find work. Yes, perfect, nailed it. So yeah, available via Twitter for further questions. If you guys are interested in getting into Honeycomb, which is really cool with a bunch of awesome designers in there, hit us up. You can also get access to it from Honey. We mentioned the link, and we will include that in our newsletter going forward. But yeah, I think, do you have anything else to say, Laura?
Yeah, no, just if, and also if anyone has anyone does anything particularly interesting yourself and you want to appear on here, that'd be really good to hear your stories. So just keep us posted. You can, yeah, tweet us or email us, and yeah, it'd be good to hear what you're doing.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks again for hosting, Laura.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being on so early.
Thanks. All right.
Cool. Right.
Gonna head off.
Yeah, cool. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.